morning, you start those days off and you don't remember who you are until you get your day going.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
I absolutely do, but sometimes I have a whole week of Mondays and I don't know who I am because I'm trying to get past some of the issues at work. Um, so let me explain how this works. So this happens. I ask you to say your name first. Tell us anything you want to share about yourself that you feel comfortable sharing, and then when we're done, however long this takes, the video will be converted. I'll send a link to it to you. If you approve, I will upload it. If not, we'll just do it over or not do it at all. That's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so please tell us your name, sir.
I am Harvey Hinton3. I'm Dr. Harvey Hinton3, from Durham, North Carolina. Um, I am a father, a husband, a Black man just trying to make it in America right now.
Amen. Amen. How old are your children?
I have two daughters, 6 and 8. Well, actually 5 and 7. They're going to be turning 6 and 8
Ah.
in a couple of months. Yeah.
So let me go back to, you said a Black man trying to make it in America. What does that statement mean?
It's a redefining statement every day, I guess. Um, I mean, uh, America is supposed to be the land of opportunity, places of hope. And so you want to be hopeful and you want to try to pursue dreams and try to fulfill some type of purpose. And I think that's what I try to do every day. And America is just the context in which it happens in. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You just gotta know how and what and where to move.
Mm-hmm. What kind of doctor are you?
Education.
Uh,
Education. I have a PhD in curriculum studies.
and do you teach?
Not currently. I'm the executive director of Care to Healing Center, a nonprofit here in Durham. We advocate for health equity and improving the quality of life for members of vulnerable populations.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not in the classroom teaching at this moment, but I feel the work that we do is turning the world into a classroom.
Excellent. That's very, very helpful to know. And if I can help you, please let me know. I'm an EDD, so
Okay.
education is my area of expertise. Plus, I work in university. So, as a Black man in America, so you've got your doctorate degree. You're making changes to make the world better. You're doing these fantastic things. Do you feel safe in America?
Well, I, America is the only place I've ever lived. It's the
Right.
only place I've ever traveled. So I'm not going to tell you that I don't feel safe here.
So
I recognize the challenges, but yeah, I think overall I do feel safe.
So I take it that you've never had an experience with law enforcement or had that feeling when you see those blue lights that pull up.
Oh, absolutely. That's a normal though.
But I mean,
Yeah.
at that instant, you don't feel some kind of dread or fear or
Oh,
something.
absolutely. I mean, every time I ride down the highway and I see those cars, even cars that look like those cars, right? Even when you see someone driving when it looks like one, you see the headlight imprint, like anything that reminds you of them people, yeah, it does something to you. Absolutely.
Why do you think?
Absolutely.
Why do you think from 1619 to 2020 we're still struggling with equality as Black and brown people? Why is that? Why is it, so as slaves they did everything they could to destroy us, and it seems like as we're continuing to move in society, they're still trying to keep us down, killing young Black men and women, old, even any age Black men, for the slightest of reason. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's survival tactic.
Say more.
I think so, if you try to put people in positions to give them the credit to make a rational decision, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to believe that people are evil. And if you don't want to believe that people are just scorned, and why else would they do something like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that somewhere psychologically and biologically, there's a fear of being overthrown. and that fear of being wiped off the planet. I think, I think deep, deep, deep subconsciously, there's a fear, and that fear causes people to lash out. And I think that the older, more mature people tolerate other people's insecurities. So I think if you look at history from a very broad scope of how long human beings have been on the planet and what have been the contribution of human beings to the planet since they've been here, what we're talking about since 1619 is a relatively short period of time. And so I think that we have a deep, deep, deep rooted understanding that this is just someone acting out of sorts. And we're able to tolerate it, even though when it doesn't appear to work to our advantage in the physical sense. I think spiritually and socially, we're tapped into something else that makes us not want to retaliate the same in a very violent manner. So I hope that's not too too foggy, but
No,
I
I
I
mean,
I, I want to be respectful of people. You know what I mean? And I have no problem discussing racism as a normal context for white people. But they created all of this, so I don't have a problem speaking to their invention.
so
Um,
can I ask you a question about that, and you can continue your thought? So as I understand it, the people who came to America early on in their time, prior to 1619, the Pilgrims, the Mayflower, and all of that, those other stories of people who had come across the ocean to find riches or freedoms or whatever it is. And I guess I'll start with the Native Americans. So here was a group of people who had been in this land for generations, been here,
mhm.
surviving, living off the land, different tribes of Native Americans, all living collaboratively on the space called America, and I may even say Earth. And then these people come over on the boat and they find them, and they, can't immediately convert all of them to Christianity or whatever it is that they want them to do. And so literally what they do is destroy almost the entire segment of Native Americans. You end up with the Trail of Tears, and then you come back around to what they've done to kind of address that is to give them casinos. I mean, why, if they were coming to America or coming to a new world looking for freedom, why would they not think the people that was here and the people that they brought here wouldn't want freedom either?
Yeah, I think that's a narrative that has been well constructed over time.
Mhm.
I'm not suggesting that it didn't happen like that. I'm not saying that. I don't think that that narrative is something that was collectively agreed upon when it started to happen. And over time, to try to make sense of it, we've kind of rested on that.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's human nature to not see the other person's point of view.
Really? That's
You
interesting.
know,
That's an interesting
and
thought.
and when you are in a survival mode, you're not thinking about the other person. And again, I mean, I just think that for what it's worth, it has to be terrifying that you get on a boat and go places and never find yourself.
Right.
Every time you get off the boat, you find someone who doesn't look like you,
Right.
and you finding yourself constantly as the outside. That's got to be a terrifying experience
Right.
in its own space.
Yep, I agree.
And how did we get so isolated? That's a whole nother question. How did the human family get so splintered that you had all these other people of color, so to speak, living communal off the earth, sharing the same value systems? I think if you study what they tend to call indigenous people across the whole planet, there's a shared value system of collective work and responsibility, family, and a relationship with the universe. It's not shared amongst these European Caucasian people. And, how did that happen? How do you explain that?
Yeah.
And again, if you're not going to get into demonizing folks, which I don't think is
Right.
safe, always, you know, um, then there has to be some type of earthly responsibility. That's our children in some regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
We understand deeply that where they came from, something ain't right.
Mhm.
And so they're just acting out the same way a child does. And you don't have language, you act out. And so I have to believe that, you know, they got off them boats and they seen all these brown people and they never found themselves. And when they in the mix with the people, they never came out looking like them. So there has to be a terrifying feeling. You know, you can't find yourself in antiquity. You can't find your roots. So we talk about black children who don't know their fathers, but damn, talking about a race of people who don't know their fathers. A race of people who can't find themselves in antiquity. All they have is folklore.
Right. And
So, you know, like I said, you take the personal and try to empathize with folks. Well, that's why they might do what they do. That to me, that's what makes sense to me.
yeah,
Because nothing else makes sense.
I mean,
Because people don't act like that.
but I would challenge that one part of that. When the people who came and met the Native Americans, we have what we call the so-called Thanksgiving holiday. Native Americans were welcoming, they were traders, they were willing to engage with these people without doing harm. But then something went awry, and I don't know what that was, but something went awry, and all of a sudden you see, you know, everybody, Custer's Last Stand, and all of these other things. For what reason? You know, it doesn't make sense. I mean, like, I can understand exactly what you said. It makes sense. So they get off the boat and they're nothing but Native Americans, and so they don't. But I would challenge you to this. I would say the majority of white people in America can trace their ancestry back over that water, back to where
No, no,
they.
no, no, no. No, I get that part. I'm talking about through humanity though. Like they can get across the water, but they can only go. They're not going back, you know, past 300. They're not going deep. Our history is over. You know, we have over 7,000 years of documented history.
Yeah.
And they're not on that picture for a long time. We have over 18,000 years of speculated history, you know? And when they start looking at, you know, other bones and stuff, man, they got stuff going back to, 200, 300,000 years ago.
Right.
And none of that includes Europeans is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's still a frequent, it's still current event in terms of what they've done to the planet. You know, they haven't done anything. So yeah, they understand what they've done since, 392 and they got that part right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still a bunch of lies and confusion. They don't, you know what I mean? The idea of a pure person, like numbers don't do that.
Right.
If you ever just take, you can start with 2 ticks on a sheet of paper and put 2 at the bottom and then put 2 on top and put 2 on top and just see before you've been up 15, 20 rows and you've lost count already.
Right.
And so, humanity is too complicated to just put people in categories, right? Let's say black, white, Mexican, whatever that is. Like none of that stuff is real. People are gonna move and people are gonna respond to their environment. That's what I tend to understand. And so I think that they've had time to construct a narrative that makes them appear to be oblivious to the destruction that they created, and it makes it so that they can celebrate their accomplishments and they have a narrative and holidays and stuff that we're all supposed to go along with. But I think the reality of it is it's just humanity's way of dealing with a bad child. You kind of you make concessions for them. You don't necessarily let them take over your world, but you give them space and you let them do what they do. And like in our people, we say bless their heart and stuff like that. We just kind of look at folks and, just kind of, you know what I mean? You just kind of nod your head and go, Lord, that boy crazy, bless his heart. You know what I mean? I think that's
Yeah.
what, I think that's what we've done as a people for years. Like we watched them and we endured. We went through all kinds of stuff because of them. Who knows why? It has to be to live, right? Like I'm not going to disrespect those who didn't fight back and who didn't run away and all that kind of stuff. But that's not fair.
Right.
Somewhere inside, those people wanted to live. And to them, living meant they had to endure whatever foolery was being presented to them at that moment. And I don't know that people know right and wrong without being told what's right and wrong. You know, in your spirit when something doesn't feel right. So I'm not gonna discredit and downplay that folks didn't know what they was doing was wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But the power of the moment, the power of influence, we know that through psychology, that you can take a person and put them in a situation and give them power of sorts, and they can act a certain kind of way. They can take on roles and behaviors that's not consistent to who they think they are. But the moment, so I can only imagine, if you're on a boat and you're 14 years old and there's 50 chained adults around you and you're told to watch them and don't let them escape. That's not easy.
Right.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that, but it's not easy is what I'm saying. And if you were in that situation, you would tap into a very, very dark space in order to accomplish what it was you were trying to do. And I think some of us, obviously, they got out of there, but a lot of them probably were just sitting, watching that desire to survive. Said, that boy crazy. I'm gonna stay out his way, but they're not gonna kill me.
Yeah.
I think we've done that. I think we've demonstrated a patience and a tolerance that the world has never seen before. It only comes from us.
Yeah. I think that when I was doing my doctorate studies, I did DNA. I took a class on DNA and genetics. And one of the things that one of the researchers had said that most Black and brown people have PTSD, and they have the coding on their DNA of slavery.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and so trying to fit into a world where you have been beat down since you have come to this place, and then you're in this place, and I understand white fragility, they are, slowly losing the majority that they were. But, and one of my husband's fraternity brothers was a police officer, and he said to me, the key to stop killing Black people or killing brown people is training. But some of that is just really common sense. The day that man put his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, I mean, can you hold your breath for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and live? No.
Nah, it's we were dehumanized.
Yeah.
And that dehumanization continues today.
Yep.
And we were taught to not have feelings. Right. We were taught to not have emotions. And we were taught that, we were thought to be able to endure enormous amounts of pain. So it's just not that police officer who put his neck on Floyd. I mean, it's who put his knee on Floyd's neck. It's been that whole system, that whole establishment, in order to maintain its power, has had to dehumanize us and not listen to our basic cries, for humanity. I think that has been shown time and time again. And I don't know what amount of training is going to get that out of them. I think you mentioned something very important. So they have now what they call ACEs, these adverse childhood experiences. And, these white people, they're real cute with naming things because those ACEs are very, very important. The question is, to your point, is how far do they go back? And once they've said, and which they have recently, that the social experience is part of the DNA structure, then obviously that complicates who we are as a people. And so I've been trying to figure out how to advocate for more mental health work with this premise that no one can be sane in this society. There are many of us who may have a plan and who may have the skill set to navigate a plan according to their, calculations or expectations. But the idea that you wouldn't have some type of mental illness, I think that's not fair to to you and what you could be getting, because no one has given us an opportunity to heal through that experience. And I think that white people are just as complicated in the fact that they had to do it too. And I think that's what what's concerning me now, and I don't ever, well, I think that's what's just really concerning me now is that when I see the white racist victimization of innocence, if that makes sense, right?
Yep.
So it's, I didn't know I was racist. Oh my God, how dare you call me racist? And now we're just going to be racist because racism is who we are.
Yeah.
And we don't have time to be made feel bad about every time you black people get your feelings hurt,
Right.
you know. And so now, you know, the deep rooted subconscious stuff is starting to become normalized again.
Yeah.
And you know,
And more importantly, they're tired of us telling them that they're racist. They're
oh
tired
yeah,
of
oh
hearing
yeah,
us tell about what they're doing, and they're saying,
yeah,
and my favorite one is pull yourself up by the bootstraps. When the
yeah.
hell can you pull yourself up with the bootstraps and you ain't got no damn boots or
Ain't got
straps?
no
You
boots
know,
or straps.
and so the few black people that are, and I don't even know what the correct term is, but I guess living marginally in America and in the world, you know, struggle to find out why does this things keep happening to us over and over and over again. I mean, I think,
Right.
for example, if your mental health analogy was really great, because if you take when Mexicans were coming across the border last year and all that stuff, and they were separating children from their parents, that's slavery. That's
That's
exactly what happened
slavery.
to slavery. Exactly,
Exactly.
and
That
so
that it's taking a different presentation, but the process is the same. When you rip people from their parents, they rip them from their sense of security. You tell them that their language is inferior, and you give them a God that looks like you and not them. All of those things, that's the formula,
right,
you know. And it doesn't matter what date on the calendar it
right,
happens.
absolutely right.
You
But
know,
the other part of that, though, for me is this: it's like now that Mr. Floyd has seemed to cause some kind of awakening for white people, some white people, some kind of awakening. And the first question is, what can I do? And I've been reading, and my family we've been having these uncomfortable conversations and all of this. And my first thought in my own head, you know, I I went to a poor school in South Carolina. I was told that Christopher Columbus discovered America, and I had all of these things that I'd been told, but I have recognized racism since I've been alive. Since
right.
very, how come they have not recognized their contribution to racism? What is
I
that? Is
think
that
I
we
think
go back
I
to
think
mental
it
health?
I think it is mental health. You know, I'll give you two examples. Recently, within the last year, there was an incident, I think in New York, where a black gentleman was going to pick up a friend from a building. And so he was waiting downstairs to pick up his friend. And a white gentleman questioned why he was there. This happened shortly after the Starbucks incident in Philadelphia. And anyway, um, the white gentleman has his son with him. And so the white gentleman begins to call the cops on the black guy. And his son is crying, "Daddy, don't do this. Daddy, stop. Daddy, don't do this." And there's this thing where you can see him acknowledge his son,
Mm-hmm.
but then then ignore his cry.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So I
Yep.
have to believe that little white kids, when they saw black people being enslaved, they asked, "What's going on? Why are you doing this?"
Right.
And their parents ignored them, right? Now, a fictitious look at the same thing would be in the movie Inglorious Bastards. Okay, Quentin Tarantino's film about Nazi hunters. With the film first opens up, there's a guy that's trying to protect his Jewish neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and when the Nazis come in the house, you know, they end up just shooting up the man's house and killing his whole family for trying to protect his neighbor. And they put him in such a, you know, sticky, messed up situation. And I think that's what history has shown. White people are very violent, and they've done very horrendous things to themselves. And fear keeps people in line. I think if you look at the rules around miscegenation in this country, white women were tarred and feathered first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were tarred and feathered first. They were the first ones to be told you can't do this, and they caught the abuse because, you know. So I think fear is a powerful tool,
Yeah.
and people who get controlled by fear, they turn into monsters, and they start doing things that they wish they didn't do.
Right.
They do things that they say they wouldn't think about doing, but they're monsters, and it's because of fear.
Yeah, but they label us as evil and monsters and inhuman.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
my,
yeah,
my
yeah.
problem with that always is I mean, look in the mirror, you know, because that man who put his knee on that Mr. Floyd's neck cannot look at himself in the mirror and think he's a human being. There's just no way. So that's why I always say your mental health analogy is perfect, because there's just no way in the world you could shoot a black man that's running away from you. You could shoot a 12-year-old in the park with a BB gun without getting close enough to him to see what kind of gun it is. I mean,
No,
I
those
understand
aren't.
that, you know, you got to save your own life and protect yourself, but they got rubber bullets. They got all kinds of other things. Why was lethal force to kill a little boy with a BB gun necessary? You know,
Yeah,
or to break into the Brianna's house and shoot her in her own house, or the other.
you know. But the thing about it is, the system creates an opportunity for them to not be criminalized, because we're not talking about a humane system to begin with. We're talking about the leftovers of an inhumane system that tried to institutionalize its will and not show its intent. And so it's going to create moments in people that's just not them, you know? That's just not you in that moment. You playing a role, but that's not you. And I think it's unfortunate that they've done that so much that no one's safe. That
No.
thing can trigger anybody. What
Yeah.
I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? It's you know, in in the Boondocks they call them nigger moments, and they got these characters stink meaning and all these people, but that's what happens in real life. I think you go out with well intentions, and you got the weight on your world on your shoulders. You got all the things that's going on in your own personal life. I mean, I don't think anyone wakes up with just glides through the moment. I mean, I think we all have to keep looking at how to move forward. And you go hit the world and you get put in these situations, and before you know it, the monsters are out. I think that's what happens. And I'm not trying to excuse the behavior, but these police officers, at the core, we're talking about a system that's designed to protect the interests of property owners. You know, if you look back,
Economic.
so if you look back in the construction of the country, when we talk about the word citizen, that's not a word that's meant for everyone. That's a word that's meant for white male property owners,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so anybody that has to be amended in the Constitution, right? That's the point.
Right.
That's the point, right? You had to be amended, so
Right.
you were part of the initial. So even in the initial conversation, they're not talking about all white men.
Yeah.
You know, they're talking about a certain protected group, you know, who had property. And so all these other white boys had to find something to do.
Yeah.
What are they supposed to do? You know what I mean? And so you come up with these paddy rollers and these slave catchers and all these different things that are working towards protecting the interests. Because guess what? The person in power knows what they're doing wrong, but they don't have the energy to support it.
Right.
So you have to come up with mechanisms to keep people in place. One is fear, and one is trinkets and stuff. So you can pacify a person. You can give a person enough crumbs to make them feel like they're full.
Yeah.
You know, and so you give them enough crumbs on one side, and you give them enough fear on the other, and you can keep them in place. You don't have to touch them.
Right.
You know, you have to have somebody else doing the bidding, and that's who the police are. And
Yeah.
they don't know it. They don't realize that. I mean, and so they take on these jobs because they don't want to be thinkers. They don't want to be doers. They don't want to do what the average person has to do. And if you find yourself in a situation where all you've ever been told was you're helpful and you're big and you're strong,
And
then
powerful.
and powerful, and now you have a gun and a badge. I mean, come on, it just goes.
Hand in
Those
hand.
people, they're not even working off of what's right.
Right.
So they're not even themselves anymore. So the whole thing has to be deconstructed. I don't think these are easy conversations at all. I don't think anybody with an easy solution to this gets it, because it's not that simple. It's so intertwined into the fabric of who we are. And so I think you see frustration from them. They're frustrated. They know in real life they're still so in real life A person's skin complexion can throw you off. Their size can throw you off.
Yep.
The tone of voice can throw you off. These are all biases people have just because. You know, you see a small person, you might bend over to try to help them. You see a tall person, you look up and step back.
Yep.
These are just biases people have. And so now I'm in a situation where my word is supposed to mean something, and I said something to you, and you didn't respond the way that I was expecting you to.
Respond to,
And
yeah.
so now force is justified,
Yep.
or not only force is justified, fear. Fear is your pass.
Right.
Fear allows you to act in your best interest. So now you can
Let me ask,
pull up with the guns drawn because you're already scared.
but let me ask you a question. So one example of the white lady police officer who goes into the black man's apartment and shoots him.
Right.
What is she afraid of? She's not in her own apartment. And I'm gonna tell you something. In the neighborhood I live in, many of the houses look alike. The moment I walk in my house I can tell I'm in my house. I don't need, an announcement. I know I'm in my house. I'm not in my next door neighbor's house.
I mean, again, it's wrong, 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 wrong. But I think in the crazy environment that we live in, I get it. She walked in there. I've heard all different rational reasons. Let's just deal with the premise. She walked in there and she got scared. And at the moment, she wasn't a cop. She was a woman with a gun. And her training said shoot. And I think, unfortunately, that's what happens. And it's not right at all. But in this system of foolery, I don't expect nothing good to come out of it. That's what I'm saying. That's my position. I don't want that to be lost.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I don't look for good out of broken environments. So what we're gonna have to do is some type of root cause to be able to say, why is this happening? And again, if we're not gonna demonize people,
right,
then there has to be a thread of empathy to get to the understanding without ever thinking that it was right. The brother's gone, he can't come back. You know what I mean? But she, a white woman, frail. She's been taught to fear everything in her world. I mean, the whole world teaches white female fear.
right.
So you put a white girl with a badge, she gonna shoot somebody. Like I just expect that to happen. It's unfortunate.
We have about 5 minutes left. I have one question to ask you though first before we the 5 minutes belongs to you, but I have one question to ask you. So going back to slavery, it was imperative that we were not educated, that we could not learn to read, that we could not, the only thing we had was a Bible. And from people who came from countries where English was not the language, it was a crime for us to learn how to read. And here we are in 2020, and the black male in the African American sphere, if you will, in the public school system or in the school system, is still held back or punished, specifically if he or she does not have a black male or female teacher. Now, that's not to say that white women can't teach or white men can't teach black kids, but if you don't understand the history of where this child is coming from, you don't know what's happening at his or her house. And so it's so important that they post, the low test scores of black kids, or they talk about how bad black kids are doing academically without ever acknowledging why. So that's all I had to say. Your turn. And 5 minutes, all yours.
Well, I think there's a couple parts about that. I've challenged the idea that I think literacy is something that has been found in the African community for as long as the African community has been found about.
Right.
We've always
storytelling.
We've always been part of a literate culture. We had the oral stories, but we also wrote things down. We have written, so I think if you look at the Bible days, if you look at the stories in the Old Testament, they were reading books in the Old Testament. So that was books before the Bible, right?
Yeah.
I think that you see enslaved narratives. There's stories about Africans who they studied Islam and they had the Quran memorized. They knew it, and so we were very educated people. I think they told themselves, they told themselves that if they taught us how to read, we would know what they was doing was wrong.
I think
That, yes, that's a lie. We knew what they was doing was wrong. You don't have to read
right,
to know that,
right,
right?
right,
I think the part about being not able to access information, that is criminal.
right. Agree with
And I think that the challenge now is how to take that criminal charge and not further criminalize. Because so I could go into an inner city school and I take that same argument and I say, if you're distracting the learning process, that's criminal. Well, I don't want to take that to the inner city school and put that on the little homie.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Who's just acting out because he's hungry.
Right.
But now we're saying that he's disturbing the learning process, so that's criminal. So I
Right.
think
You
it's
got to go out the classroom. You got to be
right,
right.
right. So, but at the same time, I don't want my daughter's education to be
Disrupted.
held up,
Right.
right? So what does her education mean, and why does her education become totally disrupted when someone else has a stomach ache? Like why isn't her education around understanding other people's needs? Why does her education have to be the curriculum pumped out something she might already know or not be interested? It's so many different ways that we can unravel this conversation. But I think to the broader point, we are very literate people. We were taught to be illiterate, and we were taught that things don't work out in our favor when we pursue our curiosities. And so somewhere we start picking up on the wrong message, where being illiterate was cool, and which I still don't believe. I still think that if you go to any of these inner cities, the neighborhoods that reflect the poor test scores, you're going to find literacy. You're going to find those same kids doing very literate things. They're doing stuff. I think that what they don't do is always understand the importance of something else that's being presented to them, especially when it's not important.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you something really quick. So I taught a class for adult continuing education, and everybody in my class is Black men. And I said, okay, we're going to do the Canterbury Tales. And everybody said, oh, man, come on now. You ain't got nothing better than that. I said, just hold on for a few minutes. I said, so what I want you to do is take each one of these characters, and I read each. I want you to find a football, basketball player that's this player. So, for example, the wife of Bath, and I can't think of the basketball player's name, but he's very flamboyant. Russell Westbrook, very flamboyant. Once you turn the curriculum into something that they can identify with, they get it. Because all these people are on a journey for something, and each person had their own story as they're going. So when you give them the Canterbury Tales in a way that they can ingest it, they get it. But if you try to force it the way it's written, it has no value to them. Macbeth is
None
the same way.
whatsoever.
The same way. So I just say that I agree with you 100%, because even those kids, like rap. I mean, you think about rap. I mean,
It's obvious, yeah.
Exactly, right.
It's one of the conversations I have with my friends. We're old enough now to be treated like the old heads, and my friends don't like the young boys. They don't like them, and I tell them all the time. I said, bro, you can't do that to them. You have to respect their space, their time, their world.
Yeah.
Okay, because what they're doing is still talented. Like it's still something.
Right.
It's different. It's very different, and I found that the ones who teach younger kids, we can have the ear to hear it. The ones that don't work with younger people, they don't want to hear it. They can't stomach it, And it's the same argument that came down from the previous generation. It's noise. It's this. It's the same. They use the same things, And I can, but it's so funny. It's a conversation I've been having for years, because I can remember listening to the Liquor House music and going, "What is this?
Right.
What's so clean and wholesome about this?" Right? Oh, everything had its time and place. Okay, here we go with that again. So okay.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time so early in the morning.
Yes,
thank you. As soon as the video is converted, I will upload it and send you a link to it so you can look at it. If you do not want to upload it, please let me know.
Okay.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Stay safe and
You
continue
too.
the
Thank
work
you.
that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.